We have one more candidate for District 23. This is Pat Wallis. Pat says he's not a politician. I hope that's true. I'm just kidding. You can be a politician. He's a husband, a father, an Army veteran, and a software developer. He served as an Army engineer officer deployed to Germany during the Kosovo War. After 9/11, he continued serving by managing bases for the Coast Guard. Along the way, he served his community as a planning commissioner in both Alameda and in Redlands. Today, he runs an innovation lab building mapping technology used by first responders and the military, including those right here in China Lake. Pat and his wife Danielle just celebrated their 25th anniversary. They're proud parents of 2 adult children. They live in Yucca Valley, where they've spent 10 years volunteering and working with Mill Tree, a high desert nonprofit that helps veterans rebuild community after their service. So let's welcome Pat Wallis.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this thing adjusted. And hopefully it'll stay. Can you hear me okay? All right, everybody. Thanks for the warm introduction. I'm Pat Wallis, running for Congress, California District 23. So let's get into this. You heard a little bit about my background, but why am I running for Congress? It was about a week after Renee Good was shot and killed on the streets of Minneapolis, and like many of you, I'm tired of the chaos. I'm tired of living under a dark cloud. I am tired of waking up with a pit and a ball, at the bottom of my stomach every morning, and want to do something about it. So I put my hat in the ring. I've led a life of service, whether that was in the military or working as a civilian engineer for the U.S. Coast Guard. And also serving the local communities that I had lived in. So giving back is not something new to me. I mean, it was the way that I was raised. My father is a veteran. He and my mom, worked in various missions for their church. Growing up, I grew up in New Orleans and in Alabama in the Deep South. And for decades, they had helped help clothe the homeless, shelter the homeless, feed the homeless in the communities that we lived. So that's how I was brought up. And that's the ethic that I bring to the table. That's my view of what a public servant should do. Selfless service to their community. I bring a little bit to the game, right? I have some ideas. That's why I jumped in. But I really look at it as a long conversation with the community that I'm serving, because I'm learning a ton. Whether it's knocking on doors or reading emails from constituents. But what I'm hearing is a common theme, and it resonates with why I jumped in. We're all facing a cost of living crisis, generations in the making, and it's hitting folks from all walks of life, all ages, right? Whether you're starting out. Young couple with a couple of kids, trying to buy that first starter home, or whether you're in the middle of raising your kids and you're trying to figure out if you can save for college and squirrel away some money on the side for your own retirement, or you're in retirement and you're trying to stay above poverty level. We have all these forces working against us right now. Whether it's housing costs, the skyrocketing cost of homeowners insurance, medical cost. In our country, the average cost per person is about $14,000 a year for health care. In every other developed country, democratic developed country, it's half that. Those in the insurance company and those that they're funding in Congress, they like to tell you that, we have the best healthcare system in the world. I don't know, right? When folks in these other countries are living to an average age of 83 and we're hitting 79, I don't really think that's the case. So we're being sold a load of BS, and we need to recognize that. And, like some of the, fellow candidates on the stage, I am for Medicare for all. There are a few tweaks we need to adjust. We need to make sure we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul to do it. It's not free money. It's coming out of our tax We need an equitable tax distribution, but we don't need to be robbing folks' 401ks and the retirement savings to do it as well. But there are common sense ways to handle that, and we need to make the move. Look, I was injured, active duty military. I hurt my back. And now I get health care from the VA. So I don't, like, even if I lost my job, I could go into the VA and get health coverage. Everybody should live with that peace of mind. Everybody should live with that peace of mind. So whether or not you lost your job, or whether due to some surprising illness or injury, you should have coverage. That is a human right, and we have to take care of each other. That's just what we do here in America. We have to get back to the basics of taking care of folks in our communities, and to me, that's part and parcel of it. Another part of it, in terms of affordability, is the cost of education. It's out of control. When my dad went to a public institution in the 60s, he told me, son, I paid $14 a quarter, right? And housing wasn't much more than that. Every parent that has scrimped and saved to put their kids through a public institution here, even in California, Cal State or UC, we're talking about 15 grand just for tuition. I'm telling you right now, you probably know this because I'm paying it right now for my own kids. The cost of food and housing far exceeds that. We have dropped the ball as a nation. Our children literally are our future. Every other advanced democracy recognizes the investment in their own society, in an educated electorate. And they are putting the time and money in to do that. We used to understand that, but we have shifted that burden onto working families and our own children, and we have to get back to basics. So for me, I see a phased adjustment that I'll be fighting for. Number one, for every family that is saving, straight up tax credit, because you're doing the government's work for them. And we should link that to the published cost of attendance at our public colleges. Now the next step is to move towards a model for education for all, where we all share the burden. Working families should never pay more than 2% of their take-home pay for a universal education system for higher education, because that is what we have to do to survive another 250 years as a functioning democracy, because we can see the effects on that today and what's happening in our own democracy. So there's some things here that we can do in healthcare. There's some things here that we can do in education. Another big one is housing, right? There's a couple lucky breaks I hit with my family starting out. Number one, my wife and I looked into a second job as apartment managers when our kids were young. And that allowed us to save money, not just for a down payment, but for saving for our kids' college too. Did you know that a starter home out here, if you can find it, a 2-bedroom, district-wide, average cost about $400K. If you want to put a down payment and closing cost on that, so you're not having to pay primary mortgage insurance, you're looking at having to save $100,000. You guys know what the median income is out here for a household? It ain't that much, right? We're talking about, it's not even 80K, right? So it's not even 80K. So you're going to spend more than a decade just saving money for that. And that means you're not saving for your own retirement, right? So here you are. You've been delayed a decade to save for your own retirement. Now you're in your 30s. You got a couple of kids, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to survive and pay for college too, and you're paying for childcare while you're at it. And the childcare is like a second mortgage. A lot of people can't juggle all that. They're having to make some tough choices and tough sacrifices. So we can see here that the American dream has become a luxury that most can't afford, right? When saving for the future is something that the few can do, you know that the system isn't just broken, it's rigged, and it's time to do something about it. In terms of housing, what can we do about it? Well, it points to another thing that I looked into with my wife and my kids is, where I lived at the time in the Bay Area, they had a shared equity model for housing. And what that means is that you never pay in your mortgage more than 30% of your take-home pay. Now, how does that even happen? Well, you have a pool of investors get in on the deal, invest in the property, and let's say like 10% of a development in an area, a tract of homes, is set aside for affordable housing. And the folks that get into affordable housing are deed restricted in terms of who they can sell it to. It's a pay-it-forward model. So you can sell your house to somebody in the same position you were in. You get equity out of it, but you don't get market value. That still allows you to start building generational wealth. And you go through about 4 or 5 cycles of that, the investors recoup their money and much more because it goes back out on the open market. That is a win-win. And we need more of that. That's the type of law and policy I'll be supporting in Congress to help working families. On top of that, I mean, the housing market's been spiked by speculative outside investors and short-term rentals. I mean, you've heard some of that today. We just have to clamp down on that. I mean, number one, we can put a stop to a lot of this just through a national defense perspective. We have China Lake, we have a third of Edwards, we have all of 29 Palms in this district. You know, we shouldn't have outside foreign investors speculating in our housing market around our military bases. So I'd propose a ban 50 miles around each of our bases, and I'd put a big stop on a lot of what we're seeing out there. Because what I'm seeing today, it is hollowed out neighborhoods up in the mountains, out in the high desert area in the Morongo Basin where we live. I mean, you might have seen a lot of it out here. I mean, you can look at an aerial map of the schools and you can see how they've been hollowed out. Like a third to half of the housing has been gobbled up. What does that do? That lowers school headcount. It takes homes off the market. It raises the prices not just of rents, but your mortgage if you're owning. So you start to see schools close, and we're seeing that out here right now. We need representatives that are going to stand up for the folks that actually work and live here. Those are the types of policies and laws that I'll be pursuing. But you know what? These types of solutions have existed for decades. But it's those in power that are benefiting from the broken system. They're the ones accumulating power and wealth. In our district in the 23rd, Jay Obernolte is in the top 10 richest. I mean, his net worth is estimated at $96 million. And if you look at the receipts and returns reported to the FEC, you could estimate that his liquid net worth has either tripled or gone up by 9 times in the 6 years that he's been in Congress. And I'll tell you what, we saw what we're going to get out of him in his first official act as an elected. Do you remember what that was? He voted not to certify the 2020 election. This has got to stop. People recognize the craziness that's going on. They recognize that the chaos is just a distraction from them doing their jobs. Democracy only works when our elected officials are willing to put it all on the line and stand up for our Constitution, stand up for the people in their district, and provide accountability and shine a light on the workings of our own government. Any agency that refuses transparency and accountability is a corrupt organization and needs to be rebuilt from the bottom up. And that can lead me to just shining a light on what's happening with our country's immigration policy. We need sane and humane immigration reform. Now, I don't believe in open borders, but I don't believe in inhumanity either. We need an immigration policy that returns to and upholds American values. And we need to start doing that right away. We are staining our reputation. But those in power don't really care because we can see how they've taken that same type of ethic in their work, or really lack of ethic, to their own foreign policy. But we might say it's not even a foreign policy, it's a military policy, right? Because the State Department has been given a back seat to negotiations with any foreign government around the world. And who has the front seat at the table now? The military, right? I mean, as a veteran, I'd love to see a world where veterans are rare, okay? I would love that. But we have given up a vision of a peaceful future and settled for one where we only have the language of war and violence. Because we could see that in the rebranding of the Department of Defense. That was one of the first acts, Department of War. So what do you do when your only tool is a hammer? Well, everything looks like a nail, right? And we can see what's happening across the world right now. And there's a cost to that. There's a cost in life, right? For the men and women that have already died in this new conflict. And there's a cost in our national treasure. But they don't care. They don't care. And you can see the statements from the top about what they're willing to sacrifice to do it. Healthcare, bottom priority to that. Taking care of our kids, low priority compared to bombing other countries. This is insanity, and it needs to stop. I'm Pat Wallis. I'm asking for your vote. I'm a Democrat that can win. And we need to return J. Obernolte to being a businessman. Thank you very much.